Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast, brought to you by Telefunken Electroacoustic. Telefunken Electroacoustic has been following the tradition of excellence and innovation set forth by the original Telefunken GmbH of Germany that began over 100 years ago, with one foot rooted in the rich history of the brand and the other in new microphone innovations for both stage and studio applications. Telefunken Electroacoustic is recognized as one of the industry leaders in top quality microphones. For more info, go to t-funk.com. And now your host, EYAL Levy.
Hello, everybody. This episode is brought to you by Ultimate Guitar Production, the most detailed, in-depth course ever created about guitars. The course is taught by Andrew Wade, who you may know from one of his 3 appearances on Nail the Mix, or work with bands like A Day to Remember, The Ghost Inside, Wage War, or Neck Deep, and it covers everything, and I mean everything. It's over 100 videos that cover every single step of the guitar production process. Setting up the guitar, choosing the right amp, cabs, mics, the right way to track guitars, editing, reamping, mixing, and more. He puts it all together by dialing tones for indie pop, rock pop, punk, and metal. And there's actually way more than what I just told you, but I'm out of time. If you want to see all of it and get a sneak preview of the content, go to ultimateguitarproduction.com and prepare to have your mind blown.
Welcome to the podcast. This episode's cool because I am in Denmark and just have a unique opportunity because normally on these Nail the Mix sessions, we don't have any guests, but this time we not only have the mixer, Mr. Jacob Hansen, but the band showed up. We've never had a full band show up. We've had the odd musician, but both the band, Dyscarnate, showed up, and their manager, Mr. Chris Adler, who you probably know as now legendary metal drummer. We had them here for the whole session, and they all have very, very unique insight. And the reason I wanted to bring them on was because if you've heard the Dyscarnate mix, you know that it's pummeling, crushing, all those words that we use for awesome metal mixes. But the recording itself, not to talk any shit, it's just DIY style, bare bones, very basic, and it does not sound at all like what the final product ended up being. And this is very relevant to most of you because most of you don't have $1 million studios or even $100,000 studios or even $50,000 or $10,000 studios. A lot of you have minimal means, and this is a testament to the fact that with modern recording technology, if you make the right choices, you can end up with a great mix. But how to do that, like I said, involves making the right choices, and that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to shut up. Here's the episode. Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast. My guests today are Jacob Hansen, Chris Adler, and Tom, Matt, and Al from Dyscarnate. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Hey.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Let's get right to it. I wanted to talk about something that for me as a mixer and Jacob as a mixer is a very real thing, which is having to mix stuff that was not recorded in the most ideal fashion. And I'm sure you'll agree that there's times when you can work with it and times when you can't. And there's times when you can make it sound just as sick as or close to as sick as something that was recorded in, high production, everything great. There's times where it's better to just tell the band to throw it away, start over, come to you next time. I'm just curious, just in a broad sense, what are some of the dead giveaways when you get something from a band that went DIY? What are some of the dead giveaways that you will be able to work with it?
I mean, if the drums are done in a way that is not, they haven't destroyed it with something they thought was cool, some weird mic placement, or just went pretty standard with everything, then I'm normally going to work with it. But there are so many things that can happen, with DIs from guitars and bass, vocals can be destroyed by something, choosing a weird mic that doesn't fit the singer
or a weird room.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. People standing far away from mics because they don't know how to record, really. And who can blame them if they're just quote-unquote musicians? They don't know how to record. And that's the thing,
So, Jacob, what was it about the way that the Dyscarnate tracks were delivered that made you realize that you could work with it? You could put your name on it. What was it?
Yeah, I think some thought went into the recordings before they even started. I think they even had some help from somebody who knew what to do and what not to do. So everything was working really well. They did some great choices, and they didn't try to be producing at that spot, trying out crazy things. They just went with pretty natural sounding things, and which is good. So I had clean, great tracks to work with.
It's interesting. One of the things that I've always told people, I guess just some good wisdom is, if you don't have a good drum room or a small room, then the best thing you can do is to try to take the room out of the equation. For instance, when you're recording drums, make everything as clean as possible, and don't let your scenario influence you. Like you said, you deliver the good DIs. Don't go crazy. Don't try to experiment in a shitty space with shitty gear.
No,
just
exactly.
get the basics and get those right.
Yeah, totally.
So for this, for people who didn't watch Nail the Mix, it was a bare bones recording, but if you hear the final, there's nothing bare bones about it. It sounds massive, but I mean, it was just a kick trigger, snare top and bottom, tom top mics, two overheads, I think hat, ride, China, right? And then...
Yeah, no, you not even.
Not even?
Well, overheads and I believe a hi-hat and a ride mic, as far as I remember. Yeah.
And no rooms.
No.
Which, I mean, it goes back to the whole thing about if it's a crappy room,
yeah,
just find another way to do it.
Totally, that made perfect sense. Otherwise, I would just have, thrown that room out the window anyways, not using it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and there's plenty of techniques you can use to create a fake room.
Exactly.
They delivered DIs. Were there amp tracks with it?
Maybe. No, maybe not.
Well, we sent over reference tracks.
There were some reference demo guitars, but no actual pre-recorded guitar tones.
Yeah.
You guys had the intention of having Jacob reamp it, right?
Yeah,
correct,
that was discussed. Yeah.
Great. So you weren't precious about your tones. It was just you're sending it to Jacob and let him do his thing.
Pretty much, yeah. We'd heard Jacob's mixes before. We knew what amps he had in the studio, so we were pretty confident that he was going to deliver a tone that was on the same wavelength that we were thinking already.
So when you guys went in to record, you just said that you knew what amps he had in the studio. How much research did you do, or talking back and forth did you do with Jacob about how to make this the best possible scenario?
Surprisingly, not actually too much communication with Jacob. We've worked with him before on a previous album, but for this album, we pretty much sent all the stems to him. We had a few notes with the tracks, just had some ideas, but it was pretty basic stuff. And I think a lot of the stuff, we just let him fly with it and put his own touch on it, and we wait to see what came back, I
think like you said earlier on as well, because we didn't really do any production work on it at all, we literally just went, here is every tool that hopefully you could possibly need to achieve kind of what we've got in mind. You take it and see what you can do with it, and then, he delivered exactly that.
Sure, you've been in the exact opposite scenario, where you get handed something that is recorded in a less than ideal way, but where there's a bunch of production done and you don't get DIs and the drums aren't very easily replaced.
Yeah.
Where it just makes it really, really tough to work with.
Yeah, and it's I mean, you can't always tell that it's going to be hard to work with. I mean, even though I'm in contact with many of the bands that are working, or producing their own things, recording their own stuff, when they ask me, I'm telling you, or telling the bands, this is what you can do, and please don't do this, and make sure this is working, and such. But sometimes, because there's no professional involved most of the time, so there's no how do you say, quality guarantee, or anybody who's looking over the tracks to check is it actually working, or is there crazy noise going into the DIs, or because these people they don't know, most of them, so they just trust what they see, on the screen, and there's signal going into it, but there might be 10 things wrong with that signal, and it's you need to know things, and it takes experience.
So, I mean, do any of you guys have any recording background, or you brought someone in to work with you?
A little bit, but we recorded all of the music with Stu McKay at Studio 6 in Swindon in the UK. So he was, he is a professional, and he's done that kind of thing before. And he helped with, he kind of oversaw everything and made sure it was all good for delivery, because I know he does mixes as well for other people, so I guess he has the same experiences. He gets things delivered which he can't work with sometimes or whatever, but so he kind of knows what needs to be there for Jacob to do his job properly, and made sure it was all there.
And we obviously went to him to book in and say, we've got a mix booked in with Jacob Hansen, we want some clean tones. So it was all about getting the real, high quality clean DI signal from it, because we had a couple of amps that we were referencing just to hear whether you got the right sort of tone that the clean signal is giving out. But
so that you had some DIs to reference from another recording or something?
No, we obviously we had our demos, but then we just went to him and sort of said we just want to get some cleans,
I think he just ran an amp sim, didn't he, at the same time, so that we could gauge
just so we could hear, and then obviously just knowing that we were sending it off, so he was pretty helpful, really.
So if I was to hire you and to mix, Jacob, and I said I don't really have much of a studio, what do you need? Right off the bat, what do you need in order to be able to work with this? I have $1,000 and not much. How do you need these files delivered?
Yeah, I actually have this. Normally, I have this list of things how to do, or how to deliver the files to me. But the thing is that if you're inexperienced with recording, there are so many things that can go terribly wrong. So I would always ask people, please make sure you bring in somebody who can help you with this. I mean, it's not enough just to go out and buy the gear. I've worked with so many people that, they end up sending me 4, 5, 6 DI tests where everything is noisy and crazy, and sometimes it ends up I need to Skype with people to see what are they actually doing, and I see the craziest setups sometimes, which is actually fine. It's not like everything is always wrong. It's not. It's a lot of times it works, but it's just so stressful for everyone if they deliver everything and the guitars can't be used. I mean, for a whole album, that's just terrible, and terrible to tell a client that, sorry, but everything you recorded is, you got to start all over. It's not a good scenario.
So do you make them send you tests in advance?
They do that. I ask people to, if it's people that I haven't worked with before, I normally ask them to send me a DI test if they're just the slightest bit in doubt of how to record a good DI signal. So yeah.
I do that too. I've gone to the point of mailing a band a DI to work with because I didn't trust the one that they owned.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I had, I sent my whole vocal chain to a band at one time, please use this,
Like the hardware?
Yes. It's not, and it's fine. And I've if it's people that can, stop by, I'm totally fine with borrowing my Avalon DI whatever, we just gotta make this work, and I'm here to help because it's frustrating for me as well as for them. But I mean, if it's people far away from here, it can be a little bit harder to help them. But I'm trying.
I've definitely gone to the point of sending a band a pair of kick pads, the Roland kick pads. Because the guy they had was not capable of recording them very well, and their drummer was gonna need some heavy editing.
Yeah.
And so we wanted them to record with kick pads. So we sent them the kick pads, and the funniest thing happened. They hit me up and said, "These kick pads aren't working. I think they're broken. They sound really crazy." And it turns out they were miking them up. I can't hear anything.
Okay. All right. Well,
But that kind of illustrates the point that if they don't know what they're doing, you can try to help, and sometimes it's still not going to do much. So they should try to bring at least someone in who knows the basics.
Yeah. And the truth is, as a band, you don't know what you're doing until you have a go at it. And, obviously this was our first time reamping because your last album was in the studio, wasn't it?
Yeah, we just recorded guitar tones straight to tape before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've done a little bit in the past, and with previous projects, but it's stuff that you don't realize until you make the mistake. I remember the first time I recorded something, that it was asked of me that the bass strings were changed every song even, and at the time I was like, I'm sure it's going to be all right.
It's not.
Yeah, I'll leave
it's not going to be all right.
And then I had the producer go, Scott Atkins, come back to me, and he was just like, man, did you change these strings? And I was like, yeah. And he was just like, how many songs? I was like, maybe 2. And he was like, oh man, I'm going to be chasing bass tone all day. And it was just like, at the end of it, it cost me more, because I thought, oh, it'll be fine. But obviously, that, just listen to your producer, because they know what they're on about and you don't.
Best way to know is if you get to the end of a song when you're tracking bass and the bass sounds completely different by the end than the beginning.
Yeah.
You probably should have changed your strings.
Yeah. Once a year, innit,
Once a year, that's fine. At least,
Yeah.
Maybe every 2 years. Do you make bass players change strings every song?
If I can, but it's often something that if I say that, people will look at me really strange, and be like, "What? That's so strange." Or I think this is sometimes something that's gonna start a weird argument, which is strange because I'm just here to get the best out of that. So if I can, yes, I would change at least the lowest strings between each song. But bass players are often like, but that's very expensive. Yeah, but you have a budget and you went into the studio to make an album that's gonna haunt you the rest of your life if it's not gonna sound great.
Yeah.
It's, the big picture again, so.
Hey everybody, if you're enjoying this podcast, then you should know that it's brought to you by URM Academy. URM Academy's mission is to create the next generation of audio professionals by giving them the inspiration and information to hone their craft and build a career doing what they love. You've probably heard me talk about Nail the Mix before, and if you're a member, you already know how amazing it is. At the beginning of the month, Nail the Mix members get the raw multi-tracks to a new song by artists like Lamb of God, Opeth, Meshuggah, Bring Me the Horizon, Gojira, Asking Alexandria, Machine Head, and Papa Roach, among many, many others. Then at the end of the month, the producer who mixed it comes on and does a live streaming walkthrough of exactly how they mixed the song of the album and takes your questions live on the air. You'll also get access to MixLab, our collection of dozens of bite-sized mixing tutorials that cover all the basics. And Portfolio Builder, which is a library of pro-quality multi-tracks cleared for use in your portfolio, so your career will never again be held back by the quality of your source material. And for those who really, really want to step up their game, we have another membership tier called URM Enhanced, which includes everything I already told you about and access to our massive library of fast tracks, which are deep, super detailed courses on intermediate and advanced topics like gain staging, mastering, low end, and so forth. It's over 50 hours of content, and man, let me tell you, This stuff is just insanely detailed. Enhanced members also get access to one-on-one office hours, sessions with us, and Mix Rescue, which is where we open up one of your mixes on a live video stream, fix it up, and talk you through exactly what we're doing at every step. If any of that sounds interesting to you, if you're ready to level up your mixing skills and your audio career, head over to urm.academy/enhanced to find out more.
Those are some of the simple things that people can do when they don't have a huge budget. There's a bunch of simple things they can do to ensure that it's going to be a lot better, like get their guitar set up, have enough strings to be able to change them once per song, or at least as much as possible. A few different pairs of drum heads at least, and sets, not pairs. And I realize that it adds up, but like you said, it'll haunt you. It'll haunt you forever. And, you know, it's not like that stuff's going to add thousands and thousands more dollars. I mean, it adds up, but it's a very simple thing you can do.
Oh, yes.
You don't need much knowledge to change strings.
No.
Capturing a DI is another super obvious one. I wanted to talk about vocals too, because, you know, on the Dyscarnate, like you guys said, it was an SM7B into a Focusrite, right?
Yeah.
Interface.
Yeah.
Bare bones. And you got it sounding great.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where, you know, that is workable. And I've watched plenty of people work with tracks like that and make them great. And the opposite as well, where it comes in with just an SM7B and a Focusrite and it sounds like garbage. So there's something else which, you know, there's another factor at play. What kind of room did you guys record in, and what steps did you take to treat it or not?
Yeah, it was just an old sort of farmhouse with big stone walls, and it was quite like a small like closet area that we just completely put like mattresses in and foamed and sound deadened, and we had like a vocal you know, like a shield around the mic as well to try and make it as dead as possible, because we just wanted to get the cleanest tones vocally for Jacob. It was quite hard to record like that because it was just very, you know, you could just hear every little bit of your voice whilst recording. But again, we just wanted to send it, get the cleanest stuff we could.
How much money did you invest in deadening the room?
I think it was everything we had already.
Yeah.
Al just had some boards and stuff that he had from some previous work he'd done, and a couple of mattresses. Yeah, just borrow or, you know, take your own.
Yeah, well, I just kind of wanted to dispel the myth that you need to spend a whole lot of money to deaden a room.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, plenty of records have been done in a room where mattresses went up. But it sounds like, so you deadened the hell out of it and put all your focus into the performance.
Yeah. We were all kind of, we like I say, we run up a home studio. We were running Pro Tools, and we were just running the vocal booth through into another room, and we had a PA set up so we could just talk back to each other. And you know, when it was my turn to record, you know, the lads would be in there. We'd be talking, like producing it, like what we wanted the sound to be with the words and whatever. But yeah, it was all just down to performance and just making sure that we were happy with it, because once we sent it, you know, we weren't trying to rely on knowing that it was going to be, you know, altered. It was just trying to make it the best it could possibly be before we sent it.
I think we've all sat through enough vocal sort of tracking sessions now as well to know what you've got to look for when you're tracking vocals, and make sure all the, you know, sibilances and pronunciations and stuff are correct.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday about how you know, you don't want the whole band there often when a vocalist is recording, you know, because it's intimidating. But that's something that we have actually always done. Whenever we've done vocals, we've always had the other two members in there being part of the process to get the best possible performance. So we could do that on our own without someone else there, and we knew what to look for, what, you know, if there was mistakes in the vocal line, if there were, you know, too many plosives and that kind of thing, we knew, okay, we're going to need to do that again because of this, that and the other, you know.
And also, we'd only just finished writing the lyrics and, you know, putting them to the music as well. So throughout the whole thing, you know, regularly one of us would pipe up and say, you know, maybe we could try this slightly different rhythm in that section, you know, having you just laid that down, and I'm hearing something else which could be worth a go. So.
And when we record vocals or write lyrics or whatever, because me and Tom have different style voices, we never go, well, I'll always do the verse or whatever. We just sort of listen to the riff and see what lyrics we've got for that point, and try it out and see what voice sounds better on that piece of music, and work it out like that. So we do all need each other, really, because Matt writes a lot of the lyrics as well, so he'll have a way that he wants it phrased, or like, so yeah, we kind of do need all of us there, really, don't we?
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of thought went into it.
Oh yeah.
I think that, Jacob, one of the things that you mentioned too was not just that the performance was great and that it was super clean, but that it was edited well. So it was crossfaded right, because one of the things that you've noticed when you get some of these bare bones productions is that there's bad crossfades and bad edits, which then make it hard for you to do what you need to do in order to make it sound like an expensive production.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could tell that things were actually done right. It wasn't like, I didn't even, when I stopped thinking about all these technical things and just mix, that's the ideal situation, of course. And this was one of those situations where everything that I got just worked right off the bat. Everything was sounding great, and I could be creative with it. So I think, again, the experience that the band had already, plus they brought in some guy that could help them with editing and whatnot. I believe you had some help with that. You didn't do that yourself, right?
The vocals we did all ourselves.
All right. Yeah,
we did.
Cool.
We recorded all the vocals together, and then pretty much every day before we started, I'd wake up at like 6 a.m. and just sit there and just edit vocals. I actually find it quite therapeutic. So
well, cool. So but you know what to do and how to make that work.
Yeah, we've got some basic knowledge of how to cut and edit things on Pro Tools. So yeah, just aligning things and chopping and.
You're getting right into it toward the end, because there's even certain guitar bits that we'd had done with, like Tom was looking back over and go, oh, tweak that very slightly.
3 o'clock in the morning on deadline day, just going, I'm just going to spend another 3 hours on this.
Well, that's actually something that I do think bands should invest in. If they don't know how, they know how, cool. But if, they have a small budget and are wondering what to spend it on, spending on someone that knows how to edit stuff properly, that's a good use of money.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Because that right there determines a lot about what you can do in the mix or not.
Totally. It's such an important thing.
Yeah.
So.
You're not afraid to compress.
No.
Yeah.
And that'll bring up all kinds of weird things.
And then also, if it's recorded in one of the things you get in lower budget recordings too, is talking about the room, like people will record in a room that's got weird flutters or just weird shit going on. And then, when you compress the hell out of that weird room stuff obviously gets louder.
Yeah.
And you end up with a vocal that just can't really fix too well.
No, you're right. There are some tools that can take away some of that. But it's not ideal, and it will change the sound of the vocals, and it's gonna be basically a nightmare. So
another thing about the way it was delivered that I thought was rare was the quality of the bass track, both in the playing and the way it sounded. That's something where people screw up a lot. You were talking about simplifying the bass lines.
Yeah.
Jacob, did you tune their bass at all?
I think so. I probably did that because that's something that I mostly always do, because a bass is hard to keep in tune.
Very hard.
It's always like that. It's on the attack, it's gonna be a little sharp, and then on the sustain notes, it's maybe gonna be a little flat. Yeah. So it's always a little bit of a you have to figure out how to make that work, and that's just normal. It's not a huge problem, really. It's just part of the bass, and it's easy to fix, really. So
the thing though that isn't easy to fix is if the bass player doesn't play hard, or if the part doesn't actually support the low end. So I think that something in that bass arrangement made your life a lot easier in the mix. And that's something that, that's down at the production level and the arrangement level and the writing level. But, in metal, sometimes you'll have these bass players that, when the guitar is playing a tremolo, they'll try to tremolo or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, but they don't think as the bass player being a functional instrument.
We were having this chat with Jacob when we were watching the mix, and I'm as guilty as that. When we wrote the songs, all the little tremolo bits on iron and everything, I was replicating when we were, because I played with my fingers normally, and just to kind of because I felt that that's what I should play. But it wasn't until we got to the studio that when we sat down with the guitars and everything that it just kind of felt better to play with a pick, play hard, and just simplify it, just to keep the bass feeling at a constant level. Because as soon as you start trying to chuck in, especially on our music, he's trying to chuck in some of the faster stuff and not having the consistency of the pick because your fingers aren't hitting as hard. We just really felt that to really simplify it. And since then, since the album's come back, I've changed the way I play certain songs because I want to have that album sound and not, trying to overcomplicate it, and makes my life easier as well for vocals. So win-win, really.
Plus that bass is always just there, almost backing up the guitars and providing the back end of the guitar tone. So, we always allow the guitars, for example, in the, groups of 16th, guitar riffs, those bleed-esque kind of riffs, allowing the guitar to really provide the picking definition of the and having the bass just kind of, hitting more of a da-dun, 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 so that you really get the tone of the bass note and not just kind of, the pick attack of it.
Well, when you play rhythms like that on bass, it just starts to blend together.
Yeah.
You can't even really hear all those notes. So it sounds to me like the moral of the story is that from the ground up, meaning from the writing to the arranging to the decisions of how to record certain parts, everything was done basically to optimize it. So, the bass was recorded in a way that supported everything else. Vocals were recorded in a way where you're not going to get a shitty room destroying the mix. The DI was clean enough so that Jacob could reamp and get a great tone. Drums were recorded in a way to where, you don't have a horrible room getting all over everything, ruining life, making Jacob want to drink himself under a table. Is there anything else you want to add to that? For bands who are wanting to hire people such as yourself or other mixers and are recording it themselves, and besides also get someone to help you who knows what they're doing?
No, I think that's that's the headline for this in some way, that you need to, use your, or find people who knows or who know about what you should find some people that knows what they're doing, because you can't know everything as a band. Obviously, it makes sense that you know your songs and you know how to, play them, but that you need a pro that knows about microphone choice. How far are you gonna stand from the mic? Miking up a drum kit if that's what's gonna happen. There's so many things, and I think that's where the Dyscarnate boys did. They did very well there and they chose wisely there, really, and also the fact that they were actually. They were really thinking about that. That's totally sweet music to my ears when Al is saying that he went, from playing with his fingers normally to playing this with a pick and simplifying what he was supposed to play, just because he was thinking about the big picture. How do we want the bass to sound in this? And I even remember us talking about I think maybe the first test mix that I did was, with less insane bass in some way. And we really worked on the bass on this album. So we want that to be, smashing your face in.
And that's been one of the biggest things that we've had. We've had lots of people get in touch with us and how we got our bass sound, because for the style of music and the there's a lot of people wanting to kind of replicate that, which is amazing because, considering that's, something that, we recorded or whatever, but obviously testament to you because it's a really good bass tone. I've had a nightmare trying to replicate it live.
but it's a combo of things. Your chain is obviously a huge part of it, but you needed to have a track that you could turn into that.
It starts. It sounds like a cliche, but it starts with the bass tone and the player, of course, because and the choices that you made. Because I do the same thing over and over again for bass sound. Of course, there are differences how a bass should sound in metal, but still, I most of the times choose the same plugins for the bass sound. But this sounded just so good because you put some thought into it, and that's important. And
same for those guitar riffs. There's. I'm sure we've all experienced this where you have a guitar rig and one person hooks up to it and it sounds godly, and then someone else plays through the same guitar through the same rig and it sounds like garbage because it all begins with that right hand and how the player approaches it. And so focusing on those riffs and how they were played allowed you to, in addition to the clean DI, allowed you to actually be able to get that monster tone.
Yeah.
Reamping.
Yeah.
I'm sure you would have gotten a good tone either way, but that one's especially awesome.
Yes, and thank you.
You're welcome. So, just as far as the guitar tracks go, what are your thoughts about when you're recording rhythms? What are your thoughts about right hand, pick choice, how hard you're playing, all those types of things? What were you thinking about?
Definitely, pick attack was a huge thing. Down to the pick choice. I think I was using Ultex 0.73 Dunlop picks, and that was actually a suggestion from Stu from the studio. He said he's always used these picks and found that the attack was great, and so I started using those. And he was totally right. That we would A/B in different picks, and that definitely came out with more attack, and especially on the tremolo notes, so pick definition really came through.
Let me interrupt you for a second because a lot of guitar players I know are very, very precious about their picks. Like, I only use Tortex, or I only use this or that, which I think is really stupid. We all have our preferences, I get it, but I feel like any guitar player who wants a sick tone in the studio should be open to trying different picks because it's such a cheap way to massively change the tone.
Yeah, totally, yeah. And I was using other picks before we went into the studio, but only just because that was what I'd ended up using. I wasn't like, oh, this is the pick for me. It was just what I happened to be using, which is something much thicker. I think I was using like 2 mil or 3 mil big stubbies, that kind of stuff. But when he suggested these, I started using them. I was like, yeah, you're totally right. We can totally hear the difference in the pick attack. Just other little things like not having the action too low on the guitar. Obviously for speed and things like that, having low action is usually comes hand in hand, so you can move up and down the neck so quickly. But pretty much all of our music is rhythm-based riffs, so you raise the action up a little bit, you're going to get much less string buzz, you're going to get a lot more resonance, and that really helped bring out some of the bigger chords and that kind of thing. And just really digging into the strings on the right hand, play as hard as you can, because with stuff like palm mutes, you're going to get much more sort of cab swell on the low chugs and all that kind of thing. So just trying to those sort of things, really trying to think about how can you make the riffs as heavy as possible by really digging in.
Plus, he'll spend an extra 3 hours trying to downpick something which is impossible if he knows it will make it sound 0.02% better.
Good. Good.
But it's not only recording like Tom live. He hammers the guitar. It's like it's quite cool to see. It's just proper digging right in to get that huge sound, because there's only one guitarist. So it's kind of got to make it count, really.
It's like death metal Hetfield.
Well, the thing is that it's not a coincidence that the sound is that huge and you guys focus that hard on playing, playing really hard and really precise and making the parts exactly what they need to be to sound big. There's what we call, or at least I call them, tone riffs. They're just certain riffs that lend themselves to sounding great. And it's kind of like yesterday when you were dialing on the Amaranth mix, there was a certain riff that you kept looping during the guitar tone part. And that's totally a tone riff because there's just something about it that makes a guitar cab sing. And focusing on that kind of stuff, you don't need a budget to focus on that kind of stuff. I think that makes all the difference in the world. So I think we're pretty much out of time. Is there anything anyone wants to add?
I think that covers most stuff from our side of things. Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for nailing the mix, Jacob. There we go.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This episode of the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast has been brought to you by Telefunken Electroacoustic. Telefunken Electroacoustic has been following the tradition of excellence and innovation set forth by the original Telefunken GmbH of Germany that began over 100 years ago, with one foot rooted in the rich history of the brand and the other in new microphone innovations for both stage and studio applications. Telefunken Electroacoustic is recognized as one of the industry leaders in top quality microphones. For more info, go to t-funk.com. If you like the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast, make sure you leave us a review, subscribe, and send us a message if you want to get in touch.